What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. How is everybody doing? This is your transfer view. This is your morning transfer view, as we are now, of course, in the January transfer window. It's every day. We're talking about transfers. We're talking about incomings, outgoings, who's going to be possibly a Manchester United player in the future, who could be a Manchester United player in the future, who is not going to be a Manchester United player in the future, who's going to be leaving the club. There's plenty of incomings and outgoings in the January transfer window, as always, and there's plenty of news and speculation as to which players could be whom. But specifically today, usually these are like 10 minutes long or something like that, because some days there isn't a lot going on, some days there is, but today particularly, especially last night, with all of the news and leaks and noise, I suppose, coming out of Old Trafford, there's a lot to talk to, so you'll have to indulge me here, because we are going to go longer than 10 minutes today, because I want to talk about more than just transfers. I think I want to talk about more than just players coming into the club, leaving the club. I want to talk about the status, the as I mentioned, the noise coming out of Old Trafford, because once again we find ourselves in this position as Manchester United fans where we're seeing the same things. We're seeing the same things and we're hearing the same things play out that we saw just a couple of months ago towards the end of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's tenure, and the same things that we've seen time and time and time again as a Manchester United fan over the last 10 years or so since Sir Alex Ferguson retired, in that it's the same noises, it's the same pattern, and as I mentioned time and time again before on the channel, I feel like Bill Murray, because it feels like Groundhog Day. It feels like I've woken up and that song's playing when he hits the alarm clock and he goes, oh, and he goes and does the Groundhog Day thing, and Puxatawny Phil comes out and he goes, well, it's Groundhog Day again. That's what it feels like at the moment to be a Manchester United fan. So we'll get into that. We'll save the leaks, and we'll save the noise coming out of Old Trafford towards the end of the video. But we are going to talk about transfers first. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let's get into some of the transfers. Let's start off with outgoings. And this does kind of lead in, I suppose, to this whole disillusionment, leaks, noise coming out of Old Trafford from various sources and reports. So a story came out last night, and it's from The Mirror. And again, I know what you'll say. Well, The Mirror, is that really tier one? It's David McDonald from The Mirror. It's also Darren Lewis from The Mirror. And I know, again, what you'll say. Mirror, are we really going to take this seriously? But bear with me. Indulge me here, guys. So this report says, quote, a source close to the Manchester United squad claims as many as 11 players now want to leave the club after becoming disillusioned with life at Manchester United. Now, as I mentioned, you'll look at that and you'll say, oh, are you really going to believe it? But it jives with what other reports are saying. So that report came out, but then other reports came out from other journalists, from other sources, such as Paul Hurst from The Times, who, again, I think a lot of people, when they hear that, will listen to it. And he said the majority of the Manchester United fringe players who are unhappy with life on the bench under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer still want to leave the club. That's essentially saying the same thing. And to be honest with you, when I saw that report, my feeling at this point, and this might be a bit of a callous response to all of this, but my response is go. Okay, go. And to be honest, it's always been like that. I'm not happy with life at the club, I want to leave. Okay, then leave. I don't know about you, I'm done with hoping people stay. I'm done with being like, oh, we could really afford not to lose them. If you want to go, go. Anthony Martial, if you want to go, go. Donny van der Beek, it's a shame how it's worked out, but if you want to go, go. Jesse Lingard, if you want to go, go. At this point, in my opinion, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And there are massive problems at Manchester United, especially when it comes to players and it comes to player attitude. And I don't mean to single those three out individually, because the problem's far, far bigger and worse than that. But at this point, with some of the performances we've seen recently, and not just recently as well, this goes back to Solskjaer, this goes back to Mourinho, this goes back to Louis van Gaal and David Moyes. These players have this, sense of entitlement to be a Manchester United player. And if you're not happy, leave. And to be honest with you, I carry that in my everyday life as well. If you're not happy where you're working, find another place to work. I know sometimes it's not as simple as that. But especially at Manchester United, when you're a professional footballer, there are plenty of options available. There are always options available to you. And if you don't want to be at the club, go, leave. What's the point in being like, I really don't want to be here, but then you're sitting and grumbling on the bench? Now, granted, I understand things aren't as simple as that. Sometimes it's not as straightforward as that. And the club has to want to let you go. And we find ourselves sometimes in these situations where someone wants to leave, but then the club doesn't let him. Remember Sergio Romero, goalkeeper? He wasn't even registered, and they still wouldn't let him go a couple of years ago. Jesse Lingard, it's been debated as opposed to what we really know about him maybe waiting to the summer so he can go on a free, maybe to go to West Ham because I don't want to sell him to West Ham. I understand things aren't as straightforward as that. But this idea of, 11 players want to leave because they're disillusioned with life at United, go. And in certain cases, I wouldn't blame him. Donny van de Beek, I don't blame you for being unhappy or disillusioned, but go. And I guess the problem is sometimes, as I mentioned, that maybe United have other plans. But again, at this point, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And maybe that's the mentality that the club ultimately needs to take as well. These players, if they come into the manager, whether it's Ralf Rangnick or whether they come into the director of football, Juan Mata, or whoever it may be, and they go, I'm unhappy, I want to leave, fine, where do you want to go? Because ultimately, those people that are disillusioned with life at the club, the majority of them are playing on the bench every week. So it's hardly as if they're indispensable to the squad. That's hardly the situation, is it? It's hardly the situation of they're starting every single week. And even if they are, at this point, we've obviously got bad influences in the dressing room. As I mentioned before, there's this, and you can't really put your finger on it, but there's this massive mentality issue that just sort of bleeds through Manchester United and has bled through the club for such a long period of time. And maybe it does need to be a case of some proper, get rid of those weeds, get rid of them. And if people are disillusioned and they don't want to be here, then get rid of it. If you don't want to be at the best club, well, I was going to say the best club in the world, certainly not at the moment, but one of the greatest clubs in the world, then go. And again, I understand it's not as simple as that. I get it. I really do. But as I mentioned, at this point, for me, I'm just like, if you're not going to be part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And that's it. That is totally it. Now, as I mentioned, we are going to talk about other transfer news. So going back to Paul Hurst from The Times, he has also said that Manchester United have told Ralf Rangnick that funds are available if he wishes to make signings. This has been one of those things that, like, there's been stories that go, oh yeah, there is funds, and then a couple of days later, there isn't funds, he's only getting loan signings. And so sometimes it does feel a bit like guesswork, but that's a January transfer window story. Anyway, it says, Rangnick is thought to believe that the midfield area needs strengthening. Amadou Haidara is on the potential list of recruits. So the Haidara one continues to persist. I've said before a couple of times, I do think we'll go after a central midfielder in January. I know we've been linked to practically everyone, especially every Leipzig player as well, but there's Haidara, Kamara, the Alvarez one, and I know he's not a midfielder, he's more of a winger, but that does feel a bit agency talk to me, it must be said. But I do think we'll sign a midfielder in January, but not to be doom and gloom, because it's early in the morning to be doom and gloom. Maybe that's why I'm being a bit doom and gloom, because I've just woke up. But again, I look at these recent performances, and if we did get a Haidara, a Kamara, whoever it may be, do you really think that with again, going back to the atmosphere at the club and the noise coming out of Old Trafford at the moment, do you really think just dropping Haidara in that fixes all of our problems? No. Because the problem isn't necessarily incomings at the moment, is it? The problem at this point, like I said, it's a mentality issue, it's an application issue, it's a work rate issue. Now, I think Haidara would come in and actually have great work rate and great application, but is it enough to fix the entire squad? No. And then maybe it comes back to what we were just talking about, selling those 11 disillusioned players. Because you've got to start somewhere, I suppose, right? You've got to start somewhere. Now, switching to more outgoings at the club, there's been a lot of speculation when it comes to Juan Mata, hasn't there? Juan Mata, again, is one of these fringe players that, when was the last game he played? It was Young Boys in the Champions League. And before that, I mean, it might have been West Ham in the Carabao Cup. There isn't really much of a future for him at Manchester United. Let's be really blunt here. There isn't. I've always got the impression that, specifically for the last few years, they've kept him around because, one, he's sort of an elder statesman at the club, respected figure, You've got to have dressing room leaders, I suppose. You've got to have experience in there, which he does have. I get the impression he's well liked, obviously, as well. It's almost like a feeling as well that if he stayed on long enough, maybe he would become a coach and he would be a good coach. You could see Juan Mata being on the coaching staff, being a good coach. But he obviously has plenty of, or he wants to have plenty of time left for him to play. So there's been a lot of speculation as to will he be one of the people to go in January? There's been rumours about Real Sociedad. There's been a lot of rumours linking him moving back to Spain, frankly. But this is according to Jonathan Schrager, who has said, quote, there are currently no talks regarding Juan Mata leaving Manchester United in January. There seems to be a good chance he stays until the summer. And again, this is one of those things that we've seen this with a lot of these people. Again, when it's Mata, Van der Beek, Lingard, etc., those people that you do expect to maybe be out of the door, a lot of the reports are saying, well, there might be some interest, but to be honest with you, it might just be a summer job. And again, when I think about the situation at United right now, it does feel like it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I mentioned that those 11 people that are disillusioned with life at Manchester United, maybe it's going to be a case of this is just going to rumble on. This is just going to continue to the summer when we do get the next permanent manager in, whoever that may be, Ten Hag, Pochettino, whoever. And then it's really time for just this giant reset. And I know that when we say rebuild again, people go, oh no, not another rebuild or not another reset. We've been rebuilding and rebuilding for 10 years since Sir Alex retired. But at this point, maybe it's what we need. Because you can't tell me that dressing room isn't getting toxic again. And when I say that, you go, well, but it was toxic under Ole, and I thought getting an interim manager in would fix things. I think the board did. I think the fans did as well, or certainly would help things, and getting a new manager in eventually would fix things. But the problem's bigger than that. It's obvious at this point, isn't it? The problem is far bigger than that. And maybe when it comes to outgoings, we're not going to see as many in January as we thought, but hopefully in the summer, we could see this mass exodus that frankly is needed. That is just needed at Manchester United. Now, I mentioned we were going to talk about transfers briefly. We've done that. But we've spoken at the beginning about those 11 players wanting to leave. And I mentioned the noise coming out of Old Trafford. I mentioned the reports, the leaks coming out of Old Trafford because they've begun again. In the same vein as towards the end of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's tenure, you remember those sort of brief couple of weeks when you had the Liverpool defeat, when you had the Man City defeat, and you had the even the Leicester defeat as well, all of those sort of real poor performances, and then you just had weeks of this just, again, leaks coming out of Old Trafford of people not happy with training, or people thought Kieran McKenna was schoolmasterly, or the atmosphere was bad, or they liked Ollie but they didn't like his training, or this, that and the other. It's happening again. It's Groundhog Day. It's happening again because we're getting these leaks once again about poor atmosphere, about Ralph Rangnick, about coaching staff, about coaches, about this, that and the other. Chris Wheeler from the Daily Mail. Again, the Daily Mail rather. This isn't just from the Mirror. This is from multiple reporters. So they're either talking to the same person or they're talking about the actual situation at Old Trafford, or Carrington rather. He said, quote, Manchester United players are openly talking about this being the worst atmosphere at United that they can remember. The mood around Carrington has been described as, quote, oppressive, with up to half of the squad said to be unhappy. This does continue. Again, it said in the Mirror, the Manchester United source said, quote, it's not good, the atmosphere is really bad, and it looks like there is going to be big problems ahead for United. So again, this toxicity inside United can just, it's still there. And then when you hear these leaks about a poor atmosphere or a bad atmosphere at United, and it feels like we've hit rock bottom, and the players are unhappy, and the players, again, it's a poor atmosphere. It's a real low atmosphere. I look at that and I go, right. So these things are now coming out under Rangnick. These things were coming out under Solskjaer. It was the same with Mourinho. At the time, I'm not the biggest Jose Mourinho fan, but at the time, when it was Jose Mourinho, they were saying it was Jose Mourinho's fault. They were saying it around Louis van Gaal. Oh, it's because he's old school. He's a fossil. his tactics are outdated, his methods are outdated. They said it under Mourinho, they said it under Van Gaal, they said it under Solskjaer, now they're saying it under Rangnick. What's the constant there? What's the constant there? It's the players. The players. Yeah, the atmosphere is really bad, but again, I look at the players. I look at their application. Basically at the weekend, or Monday rather, when they were playing Wolves and they were playing terribly. I mean, 5-yard passes, kicking it out for touch, overhitting passes, underhitting passes, not even running, not even pressing. And then they have the nerve to go, the atmosphere is just not really great. We're just not very happy here. Well, again, if you don't like it, go. If you don't like it, go. Well, and just because the atmosphere isn't great, you're not going to run on the pitch or you're going to overhit or underhit passes? Whose fault's that? Because again, managers keep coming in and going out and this toxic atmosphere remains the same. And these leaks continue to go out. How about instead of telling everyone or telling all these journalists how unhappy you are or how bad things are in terms of atmosphere at Carrington, and now you're unhappy that you're struggling to adjust to training or you're frustrated that the canteen's been renovated, or this, that, and the other. How about you actually apply yourself? How about you actually apply yourself on the pitch? How about you actually hold yourself to some sort of standard? Hold yourself to some sort of Manchester United standard? How about you actually play for the shirt that you're wearing? Anyone, if you're watching this video or if you're a fan of football, would kill to be at Manchester United. But you're upset because the atmosphere is bad, or maybe you don't like the new coach that's come in, or just whatever. We've heard these things time and time again, and frankly, I'm sick of it. I'm so tired of hearing this constant, just, we're unhappy, or we don't like his training, or we don't like this, we don't want that. Do you know how that sounds? You sound like a prima donna, where everything has to be exactly perfect to your liking. You're the players. It's not even your decision. It's ridiculous, and I find it staggering. Well, I don't actually, but we're just, a couple of weeks into Ralph Rangnick's reign as interim manager, and you've already got the same noises coming out that you had under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And I do think back to what Roy Keane was saying. When Roy Keane, he said it at the time, and people at the time went, sort of looked at him funny and went, oh, maybe Roy Keane's trying to back Ole and all that kind of stuff. But he said they threw Mourinho under the bus, they'll throw Solskjaer under the bus, or they threw Ole under the bus, they'll throw whoever comes in under the bus. And they're already doing it. The atmosphere is really bad. And if you think I'm wrong there, look at this next bit from the report from the Mirror. Many of the Manchester United players are underwhelmed by Rangnick's coaching, not impressed by his tactics, and disappointed by the quality of his assistants. So again, already we're hearing those things. Already we're hearing the same things. Oh, we don't actually like his tactics. We're not really impressed by his coaching. We're disappointed by the quality of his assistants. Wait a minute. A couple of days ago, they were saying that they were struggling to adapt. They were struggling to adapt to his later sessions because they were happening later on in the day. And there was video analysis. That's what this really is. This isn't being underwhelmed. This is frustration. Oh, I can't really adapt, or he's doing things differently, or it's not really fitting into how I would want to do things, or how we like to do things here. What is this? Mean Girls? What were you, Lindsay Lohan, and you're sitting on in your booths and you wear pink on Wednesdays? Oh, we don't do it like that here, Ralph, okay? This is how we do it because we're in charge. That's what they're really saying there. Oh, we're in charge. We're the players run this club, not the managers. Because if you get in our way, you'll be gone. And better people have come in and tried, and they're gone. Whether they are Louis van Gaal, whether they are Jose Mourinho, whether they're Ole. We actually liked Ole, but eventually we just couldn't be asked enough, so he was gone. And you'll be the same. Because, the thing is, you're underwhelmed by his coaching. You've seen him talk. Not as just the United interim manager, but you've seen him, on all of these videos talking about his coaching and talking about all this kind of stuff. And you're underwhelmed by it. And maybe with the tactics, the 4-2-2, yeah, it's not working. I understand that. But again, who are these players to judge all of that? And it feels, and people that might say, well, Owen, these are just reports, you can't buy into them too much. I look at the performances at the weekend, or on Monday rather, and recently, and I tell you what, it feels bang on. It feels bang on because the performance on Monday were not players that were impressed by Ralph Rangnick or wanted Ralph Rangnick to succeed or were thrilled by his coaching methods. No, they were players that couldn't be asked. Could not be asked. And that's the problem. It's a little bit difficult for them right now. They've already judged Ralf Rangnick. No, I don't like him. Done. We'll throw him under the bus as well. And that's what they're doing at the moment. And you're hearing the same things. Towards the end of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's tenure, we heard the same things. Well, the coaching, Ole's a nice guy, but the coaching, maybe he's not up to the level. We're a bit underwhelmed. It's the same thing. And how, after just a couple of weeks, you're underwhelmed and you're not impressed by the tactics? Again, I think back to that report of they're struggling to adapt, they're struggling to adjust. And now they're just going, actually, he's not that good. No, we don't like him. Actually, he's not that good. Well, Ralf Rangnick, while he might not be manager next season, apparently he's going to be a sporting director or consultant or something like that. So one would hope he's not going around anywhere, and maybe he'll be part of the solution. Maybe Ralf Rangnick is part of the solution, because he'll actually be the person that starts recommending to the director of football or whoever, going, no, get rid of him. Bad influence. Enough with this player power bullshit, and apologies for swearing so early, but it's enough of this player power BS that's just constantly running this club. Because the managers don't have any real influence or power, it's the players. Because ultimately, it's the players that have gotten so many managers sacked from this club. And ultimately, we're in the same position time and time again, and it's the same group of players, it's the same leaks, it's the same toxicity, it's the same atmosphere. And that's what it is at Manchester United. And as a fan, I'm sick of it. I'm absolutely sick of it. Because, again, this comes from the Mirror. It says, an increasing number of Manchester United players marginalised under Solskjaer are suffering the same treatment under Rangnick, which has led to divisions within the Manchester United dressing room. Again, I look at that report and I go, okay, so you're saying you're suffering the same treatment under Rangnick as you were of Solskjaer. And maybe that is partially true for some players. We look at Van der Beek and we say, okay, he hasn't played. But most other people that maybe weren't getting opportunities under Solskjaer have played. Eric Bailly's played games. Dalot, Telles have played games. Again, I'm with you with the Donny situation. Maybe Martial, but what would you expect with Martial? Because he's gone to Rangnick and said he wants to leave. Jesse Lingard hasn't played games, but also it's on record that he's going to leave. He wants to leave. Maybe not now, but in the summer. But how could you go, oh yeah, I'm going to leave in the summer, I'm not going to renew my contract, but I should still play? Well, that's madness, especially with the players that you've got at the club. It doesn't really work like that. And again, if it's making these divisions in the United dressing room, those people that feel marginalised, leave. Why are you staying? If you don't like it, go. There's plenty of clubs that will have you. And again, that's why I look at that and I just say it's the same stuff and it's the same BS that we've heard so many times at Manchester United. And it's player power. It's constant player power. And the moment that they're being held accountable for their own performances, heaven forbid, suddenly you hear this stuff start coming out as well. No, actually, it's not. It couldn't be our fault. Why would it be our fault? It's not our fault. We're not going to take any responsibility for that. No, it's because there's factions, or there's divisions, or it's actually the coaching, or we've got to stay a bit later to train, or it's the renovation in the canteen, or we're actually a bit underwhelmed by Rangnick, or his assistants aren't actually that good. It's not our fault. The atmosphere is really bad. We don't like coming to work. No, you've got to be held accountable for the first time in a long time. And as I mentioned at the beginning, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And that's got to be, I think, the mentality going forward for the Manchester United fans. We can't let all of this distract us, ultimately. Because that's what it is. It's all one big distraction. It's all one big BS stories, all this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying it's not true. I'm saying probably a lot of it is true. But we can't let it distract us, because I think the general reaction after that Newcastle performance was some of these players aren't good enough, they're not trying hard enough, they're not holding themselves accountable, they're not working. And then suddenly, wouldn't you know, all this stuff starts coming out, where it's everyone else's fault but their own. And you've got to look at it and say, no, I'm still holding you accountable. You're still the one that can't do 5-yard passes, and you're blaming it on the atmosphere's poor. You're the one that's kicking it out for touch, and you're blaming it on Ralf Rangnick's actually not that good, or I don't like his coaches. What? Because the coaches are bad, you can't do a pass, or because the coaches are bad, or the atmosphere's poor, you don't want to run during games. Come on, do me a favour. And again, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. 11 players want to leave, or people aren't unhappy at the club, go. Anthony Martial has gone to the manager, says I want to leave, and ultimately he'll probably get it. But whilst you are at the club, especially those ones that want to leave, but they go, but I'm not going to go to the summer, I'm going to stay. Those ones, okay. Stop making noises. Already made your mind up. Again, if you're not going to be part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Whilst you're there, continue to try hard, continue to be a positive influence on the dressing room. Why make the fans suffer for your unhappiness? I don't know. Look, guys, anyway, be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As I mentioned, we've gone into, I guess, a bit of a rant on today's transfer view. I mentioned we were going to go a bit longer, but it's just, I don't know about you guys. I'm just tired of it. I really am. Anyway, guys, I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Peace.